Hello and welcome to another Wrestling Roundtable discussion podcast. I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, joined by the Dadley boys of WhatCulture, Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, to discuss another burning wrestling issue. But before we begin, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling, or one word, on either iTunes or Spotify for daily podcasts like this. We review Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views. We have more roundtable discussions. We have interviews, and we have a round of the week complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. But gents, today I want to talk about Ronda Rousey. Lots of discussion about her following Survivor Series and Monday Night Raw last night. Before we get to Monday Night Raw, I want to know what you thought of the reaction Ronda Rousey got at Survivor Series following her match with Charlotte Flair.
I mean, it was really hard to wrap your head around it in the immediate aftermath. Like, I could understand that the WWE wanted Charlotte to get booed and her not getting booed, because really at this point in the way the product is now, if you see a performer acting with such passion and such intensity, even a guy like Bryan, who's this new heel, you can't not get behind it, because so few performers actually do act in that way now. So I could see why Charlotte got cheered, but the Ronda getting booed didn't really seem to contrast that. It was okay for fans to be as sad for her as they were happy for Charlotte. I didn't see the need to be well, we've just babyface Charlotte, so now we're going to heel Ronda in response, especially not in her hometown. I feel like it's an indictment of where we're at with WWE now, that the mistrust towards Roman Reigns and John Cena before that, and many other stars that they've overpushed. Ronda's getting it through being deserving of the spot. You know, everything she's done this year has been exceptional, and she's over-delivered on measured expectations in pretty much all of her matches. So WWE have pushed her in line with that, but the fans now are so cynical to thinking that the machine is behind it that they're not bothered about the performances. They're looking past the quality.
Do you think that, Michael Sidgwick? Because like you say there, she has had one of the best rookie years ever in WWE, and fans perhaps spotted the win via DQ in a match that they kind of don't want either person to lose. Win via DQ for Ronda Rousey, beat down, carried out, and perhaps realised that WWE have booked that with in mind of, she's in her hometown, she'll get cheered as she leaves, despite the fact that Charlotte leaves with her head held high, and the fact that she just battered the crap out of Ronda Rousey with all manner of weaponry. Is it that the fans sort of recognised that and said, we're not going to go down that path that you're trying to force us down, or was it something different?
I've spent quite a bit of time trying to explain this reaction, because I was baffled by it, to be honest. And I think WWE has almost invited this themselves, because, as Hamflett pointed out, popular as John Cena was, he was as divisive. Roman Reigns can't even claim to have split the crowd, because they were unanimously against him by the end of his run. Not that it's the end of his run, but you know what I mean, before he got the awful news. And I think in a way WWE has invited this because they're so they do not listen to the fan base at all. To a parody degree. They're just so insistent on pushing who they want to promote rather than listen to their fans. And I think the fans are so anxious about it and so eager to express their support of Becky Lynch that Ronda Rousey's been caught up in the backdraft. They want to make it so clear, finally, you're pushing someone we want. We're going to make this as explicitly clear in our reactions as you do on TV. And I think Ronda Rousey, I think there's a bit of a direct retaliation, which we'll come to. But I think indirectly, people are so insistent we want Becky Lynch pushed that the message is spread a little bit too far.
So if it had been anyone other than Becky Lynch, arguably they could have been booed in that scenario.
Yes, absolutely. Bruce Pritchard, in another brilliant podcast as well as this, has referred to Hulk Hogan's mid-80s golden period as Hulk dust. So whomever was pals with him or whoever he worked against became over by just being in his orbit by association. And I think Charlotte's got Becky dust, because if you think about it, 2 or 3 weeks ago at the latest, her reactions were subdued and or divisive. She certainly wasn't as over as she was then. And I think the mere fact that Becky's given her stamp of approval means that, right, okay, whatever Becky says goes.
Do you know, I think we were talking about this a little bit this morning. The constant comparisons to Stone Cold Steve Austin with Becky Lynch are very relevant and don't at all undermine Becky's excellent work. But the latest one for me is in how Charlotte really worked beyond herself, and she's great anyway, but really worked beyond herself at Survivor Series to try and take back the spot in the way that The Rock competed with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Becky Lynch's Austin has now got its Rock in the form of Charlotte, because these two women in a predetermined sport are competing to get a slot in the main event against Ronda Rousey. So it's bringing out the best in people, but the sort of the jaded relationship the fan base has with WWE at large isn't picking up that. It's worried instead. I think there was a lot of worry in those boos and a lot of panic that like Charlotte's attack was so good. What you'll find is that like Charlotte, because they know that Ronda's the only permanent piece of that WrestleMania main event. So what you suddenly have is worry that Becky Lynch is going to be slotted back out and Charlotte goes back in. Whereas in the reality, it should be just great. It should be celebrated that the guys want so much to be in this main event. That the guys are pretending again that this is a competitive thing, that they want to be the best. That like Charlotte now is performing at a level that competes with Becky Lynch. We should be grateful for all these talents rather than concerned that WWE are just going to blow the one that we like the most.
Yeah, I want to get on to Becky Lynch and WrestleMania 35 in a while, because there's more questions swirling around that match and how Ronda perhaps should be presented. But before we get to that, on Monday Night Raw last night, the boos were a lot less than they were at Survivor Series. How did Ronda Rousey get over it on Monday Night Raw, and how did WWE try and alter that course of WWE crowd reaction?
I think what they did, and this is quite clever, is that they steered very far away from this very strange anti-millennial patter that Ronda Rousey has been sort of unleashing. It's all very strange, but basically what they did, and this is clever, was just have her do the most generic promo possible. They hit plot points A to B. She didn't use her own very strange verbiage. And even me saying the word verbiage there, I'm going to get someone in the comments section say that I swallowed a thesaurus and that I'm a cook. Basically, Ronda, if you've ever read any of my articles, I can tell you now, big words don't get you over.
That's why Chris Jericho used them when he was being
exactly. Like, that's a great point. And I think by making it generic, the fans had no... And I'm not saying wrestling fans are stupid at all, but I think people don't want pretentiousness, which is why I'm deeply unpopular.
When I watched it last night, I have to admit, I thought, oh, she's got herself way back over there. So, and I'm an idiot, so it won't work with me.
That version of Ronda Rousey in the last week has seen her getting like bantered off on Twitter every day, not just by Becky Lynch. Like she's putting these tweets out, and like fans are going, eh? You know,
marinating in penis envy was
like,
her latest tweet.
Like.
Marinating.
Like, fans just aren't feeling that. It's one thing to, like, I think this is something to go back to from the Survivor Series, by the way, and they were in the same venue for Monday Night Raw. But, like, she was talking about, like, avocado toast munching millennial men. Like, that might marry up well with me, who just wants, like, a cheaper Greg's breakfast deal. But people in LA, like, she's referring to half of that crowd. You know, it's a one of the more liberal WWE audiences that they probably have. Like,
and it's our home state. We keep coming back to this.
A lot of these are her people. You know, the people that she kind of like, not the guy she's married to apparently, but like the people that she would surround herself with in like in her life as a Hollywood star, come pro wrestler, come everything else that she does. It feels like that was a sort of a collaborative effort between Ronda Rousey and Vince McMahon, and like he's maybe not the voice. Like he shouldn't be, you know, she shouldn't be a ventriloquist dummy for Vince McMahon views on the American left. And I just think like
Paul Heyman apparently has a hand in it as well, which to his credit, I think Paul Heyman recognises the value in letting performers be extensions of themselves. But with Ronda Rousey, maybe don't do that because she's a natural real life heel.
Until you that's it,
Like
until you're ready to let her be a heel.
But it's funny you should say about the Los Angeles crowd leaning liberal, but according to data, like, and this surprised me, the majority of WWE fans leans liberal.
Really?
Oh, well, and even if they don't, we knew from the latest midterm elections how close it is and how divided it is, pretty much in half between like the general like electorate and the popular vote and all the rest. Basically, it's split in bloody half America right now. So why would you go one way or the other? Because you're going to alienate the other.
Also, I've been doing a bit of research on Ronda Rousey for a bloody good quiz that is just about to go up at WhatCulture.com all about her. She's a former vegan. She was a vegan when she was competing in the Olympics. She's changed her diet now. She's on the sort of paleo warrior diet. But, I mean, people in glass houses.
You have hit on an amazing point because on the early November Raw, this is when Becky Lynch was still, it might be not on the show itself, but when Becky Lynch was still in that Survivor Series match, Ronda Rousey cut a promo at her expense, and this is the millennial wingtip shoes avocado promo, which she introduced by saying Becky Lynch You are so hypersensitive. And it's like, are you kidding me, Ronda Rousey?
Yeah.
You don't take a loss very well.
She welcomed it. She welcomed what she got back in return from Becky Lynch.
I don't know if that was the heat, why she was saying that on purpose
Possibly.
to draw the response. I don't know if that was making a point A purely to get to point B. But if it did, it sailed over my head because all I was left thinking was, you're a hypocrite. You're like a real big hypocrite here, and it doesn't help your perception as like an aloof celebrity coming into this world. It makes you look like you're just completely in your own bubble without any idea of how people perceive you, which does not help.
So they had the promo that, like as you say, brought things back to basics and got the crowd hopefully a little bit back on her side. They had the title match last night, which is always a guaranteed.
All that was really inspired. Like Mickey James is such a reliable wrestler to go against. Ronda Rousey can work.
She's amazing. We need to point this out.
I've been such an advocate for like probably around the time of the Alexa Bliss feud when the SummerSlam match for me was lent in too far to Ronda just being completely dominant against these pro wrestlers. I was ready for Ronda Rousey to embrace kind of like the art of pro wrestling, the holds and counter holds and the storytelling. She's brilliant at it. She's really good at it.
Amazing at this.
We talk about best rookie years, and that kind of gets lost between like work and shoot, I think sometimes, doesn't it? Is like you've got great rookies that are like legitimately good because they've been pushed, and some that are great because they picked this up well. She's a Kurt Angle level rookie in how she's picked up what it is to be a sports entertainer, and I use that phrase intentionally. She's good at all of this, and she was in there with somebody that she could prove it against. She wasn't just there to go and break an arm and pose and jaw jack with the crowd. She was being a pro wrestler. She was getting beaten up. She was making comebacks, and that is ultimately what's going to keep her popular until these promos or until the booking decides otherwise.
And what else can they do now? Because on the horizon is arguably the perfect feud for her if you want to get her cheered, facing someone who is booed out of the building at the moment in Nia Jax. She's going to be facing her at TLC.
Yes.
Is there anything else they can do, or is it just perhaps really emphasize heel Nia versus babyface Ronda and deal with the future, as we're going to in a minute, with Becky and with Charlotte as and when it comes?
I'm not even sure that's going to work. Because as loathed as Nia Jax is, that heat is going to go away the second Becky. Not going to go away as such, but it will diminish because there's not any talent driving that reaction. It's circumstance. So I don't think Nia Jax is a good enough performer to maintain this level of heat, no matter how many times Vince can direct her to do that. Yeah. And what concerns me about Ronda Rousey's babyface turn is like, she put on one of the better WWE women's matches in history at Survivor Series. Certainly the most believable. It was, if you told me this time last year they're going to sign Ronda Rousey, what kind of match do you want to see her in? That was the match. It was exciting. It was so incredibly realistic. And yet, even after the fact, she still got booed. And I think it might be beyond her control at this point. Maybe they just need to steer in.
I disagree personally with the idea that I personally, this match and this story has come around at exactly the right time after the Ronda boos. I feel like, I agree with Sidgwick for what it's worth. I don't think Nia Jax is necessarily the performer that can carry this completely, but the heat she currently has can. I think she steered into it really well at the Survivor Series. I think I said it on the podcast. I think she had her best night at the Survivor Series, owning the heat and not being afraid of it. Slightly worried that they've already overdone the kiss in the fist thing. But in the arena on the night, much like the Survivor Series itself, the television is not going to matter because the story's already been told. The story really is Nia Jax punched Becky Lynch in the face, but the match we're left
and actually connected, according to Jonathan Coachman.
Oh, God.
Yeah. What an idiot.
But like,
an absolute idiot you are, Jonathan Coachman.
I do believe you can drop any relatively popular women's wrestler in against Nia Jax at the moment and they're going to find a way to get cheered. So when you've got someone that is organically popular, say for one bad night as Ronda Rousey, I think that match will do everything they need to do to rehabilitate the career of Ronda Rousey as a babyface, if that's particularly what they want to do.
So that's how Ronda Rousey got over the boos from Survivor Series last night. Looking forward, she's got presumably another match to come against Charlotte Flair in the future. She obviously has a match against Becky Lynch, which is arguably the most anticipated match of 2019. Perhaps for WrestleMania 35, that's what we all hope for, and that's certainly what's been reported recently.
Yeah.
For that reason, do WWE need to turn Ronda Rousey heel in 2019?
I'm going to say yes, because my favourite ever wrestling storyline, and a one that transformed the entire industry, was Bret Hart versus Steve Austin.
He just wants to put his comparison over.
I don't just want to put my comparison over.
Does, man.
But I do. But this storyline needs this Becky Lynch character to truly ascend and to truly be in that main event position and it feel all right requires a heel and requires a strong heel too. So this turn can feel organic because Becky Lynch wasn't supposed to be a babyface. You know, we're talking 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago even. They were still desperately, they had a run out of Super Showdown to avoid getting beaten by Charlotte. But they've just given in and accepted that this is a babyface character. Like, the world maybe isn't as ready for anti-heroes as it used to be, but they're certainly ready for Becky Lynch, the babyface. So let this storyline play out logically. And the logical end to this, for me, is Ronda Rousey, the heel, losing to Becky Lynch. I think the risk you have with a babyface, Ronda, isn't so much a divided audience, because I think the WrestleMania audience will still favour Becky, but it's some of the heat actually disappearing from the match. I think there's nothing wrong with the old traditional method of having an actual bad guy and an actual good guy, even though we're in this sort of post-heat era. I think Andy Murray called it. Like, if they can get Ronda Rousey through Nia Jax and have her sort of just ease into being a villain in time for WrestleMania, I think that's the best chemistry that you'll get for the match.
I agree in how I would do it, and it's funny with saying how the story's already been told about Nia Jax punching Becky Lynch in the face. Becky Lynch is writing better television right now on Twitter than the creative team could possibly dream of doing. And what I would do, if I was fantasy booking this scenario, is I would simply have a series of Cena versus Rock or Cena versus Roman-esque shoot-style promos, even though I'm not the biggest fan of them, but for this context it works perfectly. And I would have Becky Lynch, presumably on the back of a Rumble win, have her slaughter Ronda Rousey in deliberately one-sided segments. I'm still convinced that The Rock wrote down that stuff on his hand on purpose for the purposes of giving John Cena ammunition, and people bought it hook, line, and sinker. Do clever stuff like that to make it appear as though Becky Lynch is completely safeguarded in how amazing she is on the mic. Have Ronda Rousey for the first couple of weeks just struggle against the verbiage. Sorry, I'm a cook. And lean into this, to the fact that Becky Lynch is clearly winning the feud, even though it's a stupid thing to say because the whole point is to build one another. But then have Ronda slowly by the week have her psyche disintegrate, won't be a problem, and then absolutely kill Becky Lynch in the same manner as Charlotte killed her. Like, inflict one of the most gruesome beatdowns you've ever seen, and it's Ronda bloody Rousey. She's amazing at this. She'll be able to make it look credible. Have the actual WrestleMania 13 moment happen before WrestleMania 35. Have Becky Lynch blade, because you never really see that anymore. And if this is going to be major, don't have Stephanie McMahon brag about how Becky Lynch is the first woman to intentionally blade herself in the Women's Revolution, because that wouldn't put it over. But basically, just have a completely humiliated Ronda Rousey lash out, turn unmistakably heel, murder Becky Lynch on national television, and then go to WrestleMania with a very clear dynamic. Because even if they want Ronda Rousey to turn face, ultimately, in this day and age, turning heel is the best means of turning face anyway.
They are blessed, of course. You could do that, and if they were keen to keep Ronda and Becky separate, which I know is sometimes a company thing, they really don't like them to, despite the fact that every single week you've got to have rematch after rematch, that first encounter is sometimes they kind of like to sometimes keep as far away from the pay-per-view as possible. You do have the advantage of having Charlotte, Sasha and Bayley as baby faces that Rousey could break arms one week after another week, saying look, this vision of pro wrestling, this vision of women's wrestling that you guys created, look how easily I've just steamrolled through all of them, and you're the only one left. I've got nothing to fear because look what I've done to your friends. You know, there are ways to make this evil version of Rousey that you've pitched like a foil for Becky without her even getting to touch her. You know, they could be helped by the fact that they're kept on separate brands.
Well, this
you
is
know,
what
this could actually favour them. Becky could challenge, say if she's stripped of the title or wins the Rumble, or we have that scenario, she could still challenge for that title, but kind of be allowed nowhere near her in the run up to the show. You know,
that's what I was going to say, because we're obviously every wrestling fan is a huge fan of fantasy booking, how WWE should do it. As it stands, people are sat there going, well, you can't have Ronda versus Becky at WrestleMania 35 because they're both champions of their respective brands. But going forward, would you have Becky arguably being stripped of the title because she's unable to defend it? Then, say at the Royal Rumble, you could have the rematch between Ronda and Charlotte, arguably, and Becky finally getting her hands on Nia Jax. Subsequent to that, you have Becky winning the Rumble and then go from there. Is that how you would do it, or is there another way around this?
I would keep the Becky Lynch Nia Jax interactions to a minimum. Obviously, they can kill each other. I won't say kill each other, but like that's what Ronda Rousey makes us want to do. She makes us want wrestlers to kill each other. Have them like just batter each other at the Royal Rumble. Massive heat spot, massive exchange. And I would have an Asuka heel turn shockingly dethrone Becky Lynch of the title, which means that she can then go on to win the Royal Rumble match, which gives her an excuse to go over to Raw and challenge Ronda Rousey, and over on the SmackDown side of things, have a sequel between Charlotte Flair and Asuka, because Asuka will get over as a heel.
She's still hugely popular.
She's still hugely popular. I think fans would be welcome to it. I think they would play along in a similar way to how people played along with Tommaso Ciampa at TakeOver New Orleans. Like, they didn't hate him that much. They just respected his ability to be a heel so much that they played along. I think fans want to see some, like, Asuka do something, anything, to an extent that if she turned heel, it wouldn't be rejected. It would be, oh, thank God they're doing something with her. So those are the two matches I would have.
My only concern there is that I don't believe
Is Asuka's Japanese.
WWE can't book defeats as effective obstacles like they used to. It used to be okay for wrestlers to lose once in a while because they had ways in which to rehabilitate them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure they're as good as that as they used to be. And my fear there is that Becky losing any match of any significance between now and WrestleMania, they wouldn't be able to cope with like that character getting derailed as a result. I would like to see her get stripped of the title because like I believe in her performance skills to be able to put that across as like other sort of top baby faces have when they've had their titles taken off him. I'm not thinking of like a Finn Balor just like limply giving his title to Mick Foley and see you in 8 months.
He
guys.
Smiled when he came out for his entrance.
Like Becky Lynch is somebody that can like storm out there, be livid with the circumstances, and just stare down the lens at Nia Jax promising redemption and stare at Ronda Rousey thinking this isn't over. She's done it on Twitter, just missing out on the Survivor Series. So I believe she can do an elevated version of that and then announce the Rumble as a comeback. So, well, I'm not messing around. Like, the man will be back at the Rumble, and I'm going to right all these wrongs that have been perpetrated against me. My worry of her taking too many defeats at this point is that no character in the company, this is not a Becky Lynch issue, this is a systemic issue. I don't believe characters can absorb losses like they used to if they're getting pushed.
Ahead of Sunday, I didn't think Charlotte Flair could get over as much as she has. I think there's such a massive investment now in the women's divisions that people will maybe accept some of WWE's silly bollocks booking.
She's done amazing to make a two-person conversation in this division a three-person conversation. She's done fantastically.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see more wrestlers across every division. Like the Cruiserweights did it at the Survivor Series as well. I want to see that attitude back, not the attitude. I want to see that attitude in the locker room back amongst the wrestlers.
And to bring it back to Ronda Rousey, regardless of whether she remains as a babyface or turns heel, it's a thing that WWE say a lot, but she is someone who will guarantee a reaction from the universe, isn't she?
I think so. I think because I think she's still a draw as well. I still think about like wrestlers that like I would personally want to go and pay to see. And to me, Rousey's lost none of that, babyface or heel. Like if she was over here in the UK as the advertising name of the house show, she's like an old-fashioned draw. She's a ticket-selling performer, and there's never enough of them to go around in WWE anymore. So I think she's fine in that regard.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, let us know your thoughts on Ronda Rousey in the comment section or on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. And whilst you're there, you can follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Sidgwick on Twitter at
Sidgwick.
Follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. As I said, you can follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. Make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes or Spotify for more daily podcasts. And my thanks to Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick. Thank you for watching or listening, and we will see you soon.
Bye.